Inheritance or heredity is the transmission of genetic information from one generation to the next generation. For the studying of inheritance and pattern of inheritance, we need to know the following terminology. That is homologous chromosome, haploid and diploid, genes and alleles, and homozygous and heterozygous allele, and allelic relationship like dominant, recessive, and codominance, and the sex-linked trait. If you talk about the chromosome, these are thread-like structure appear during the cell divisions. These thread-like structure are present in nucleus. When the cell is not dividing, they look like chromatin material. But when the cell is dividing, they appear the 23 pair of homologous chromosome. These 23 pairs of homologous chromosome, they consist of half set 23, it came from father, while the half set 23, it comes from mother. So they fertilize together in the form of the gamete, and they produce a zygote with 46 number of chromosomes. So these are total 46 number of a chromosome consist of the 23 pair of chromosome, and these 23 pair are homologous chromosome. So it means the characteristics equally come from mother and father. So whatever the character we have in our body, they are equally come from the mother and father. So we're going to emphasize on that. So in these 23 chromosomes, 22 pair are autosomes, which are giving information for designing our body characters, while 23rd pair is making sex chromosome. And this is providing genetic information for designing the primary sexual characters, like we are going to be male or female. Here, the questions relevant to the following information. The owner of a successful racehorse hoped that the horse's offspring would be like their parents. How does a young racehorse inherit its characteristics? We can use the following information. The characteristics equally come from mother and father. So according to this concept, the suitable answer is equally from its mother and father. The next concept is haploid and diploid. So nucleus containing single set of chromosome, for example, the gamete, the male producing sperm and the female are producing egg. They contain half set of chromosome, and it is represented by 1N, and it is haploid. While the diploid nucleus, the nucleus containing two sets of chromosome, one from each parent, so these are diploid or diploid. So this diploid number, for example, the haploid number are 4 chromosomes, while the diploid number are 8 chromosomes. Question relevant to the diagram shows a haploid cell from an organism. What is the diploid number for the cell from this organism? So for solving this question, first we will count the number of the chromosome in the nucleus. For example, if these are 6, so in this way, 2 multiply 6 is equal to 12. So the diploid number of chromosome in this cell will be 12. We're going to move toward homologous chromosome. The homologous chromosome are a pair of chromosomes from each parent and have same genes on the same locations. So these are considered homologous chromosome. For example, if there's a one chromosome and it has another pair, and they're designing homologous chromosome. Why? Because they contain the gene appearing for same trait present on same locations. Now we can emphasize on gene. So all this genetic information present in the nucleus, and the nucleus contain chromosome, and these chromosomes are made up of the DNA. And this DNA contain gene. If we emphasize more on the gene, so the gene is the length of the DNA which can code for the one particular protein. So the chromosomes are made of the DNA with histone protein. If you open the chromosome and this chromosome contain a length of the chromosome which can provide the genetic information for designing the particular protein, that is gene. Now this gene are located on the surface of the DNA. Related to the gene, following questions might possible: which substance is coded for by the length of the DNA? We can use that following concept for solving this question: length of the DNA which code for specific protein. So the answer will be the protein. If we are moving toward the concept of allele, so the genes are located on the surface of DNA, and DNA is present in chromosome. For example, so there is a specific location in the chromosome pair number 5 that is called genes. Now this gene, for example, this one pair or one chromosome from the homologous chromosome number 5 came from father, while alternative homologous pair, it came from mother. And these two chromosomes are homologous chromosome. Now on these homologous chromosome, so the gene for eye color, for example, it may be capital B or lowercase b in a dominant and recessive relationship. So this is present on the same locations. So that's why they're called homologous gene or homologous chromosome. Now in the same way, gene for tongue rolling, this is present on the chromosome pair. So these are two homologous chromosomes. Now in this homologous chromosome, so the gene appearing for same trait, so these are called alleles. For example, so the capital B is also appearing for eye color, while the lowercase b is also appearing for eye color, and they're present on the same locations on the homologous chromosome. So these are alleles of each other. Now these alleles may be heterozygous. For example, one is the dominant capital B, other is a lowercase b, is represented with the recessive, is represented by lowercase g. These are heterozygous. But if they are the similar, so they are represented with the same uppercase homozygous dominant. We're going to emphasize this concept. For example, if the gene is appearing for eye color, and we consider the black eye color is dominant, so this capital B will appear or will express itself in the presence of lowercase b. Now, this eye color contains green color, but the green color is hidden. So capital B will express itself, and this conditions will be heterozygous, and the eye color is black. While if there is a homozygous recessive conditions, so the both allele are the lowercase b. So in this way, the B will appear, the green color will appear in the absence of dominant character. In the same way, if we have the capital R or capital R, this is representing tongue rolling character. So the person will be able to roll the tongue. But if there is a lowercase r, the person won't able to roll the tongue. So these genetic character may be a dominant and recessive relationship, maybe codominant relationship, or maybe X-linked trait. Here, we're going to emphasize more on the dominant and recessive relationship of alleles. For example, if the black color is dominant over the green color, so the allele may be homozygous. If the two identical allele of a particular gene, for example, the capital B is representing the dominant character. So the eye color will be black. If there's a lowercase b, so it's representing recessive character, so the eye color will be green. But if there is a heterozygous conditions, two different allele of a particular gene. So in this way, the capital B is present, lowercase b is also present. What kind of color may appear? Yes, your answer is correct. This is the black color. Why? Because the dominant allele is present. So if there is a dominant allele, so heterozygous will always go with the dominant allelic relationship. But first we need to check what kind of allelic relationship is that. So here we are taking example from dominant and recessive allele. We're going to jump for another example. So for example, if there's a homozygous, so white color is dominant over the black color. So if there's a homozygous, capital B, so homozygous dominant, this will produce white color. While homozygous recessive, lowercase b will produce a black color. So if there is a heterozygous in conditions, if there's a capital B and lowercase b, what kind of color might appear? That is white color. The reason is what? The capital B is present. So dominant trait can express itself in the presence of recessive, while the recessive will stay hidden in the one generation. So that is the allelic relationship. Now questions relevant to this information: an individual, how the genotype capital B lowercase b. What is the correct description of this genotypic relationship? So this capital B and lowercase b is heterozygous, and these are two alleles of the same genes. So the correct answer is relevant to the given information. So heterozygous with the two different allele of the same genes. So mean the gene is same, but the alleles are different. Here, now what is an allele? So allele is what? The any one of two or more alternative form of the genes. So for example, the gene for eye color is 1, but the alleles are 2. In the same way, the gene for skin color is 1, but the alleles are so many. So in the same way, the character is 1, but the allele for appearing for that character may be different. So these alternative form of gene is called allele. What are alleles? So then alternative other questions are different version of a same genes. So the gene is same, but these are the different version for the same genes. These are alleles. We're going to move to the next, the terminology is expressions of the genes. Gene expressions we can represent by genotypic or phenotypic expressions. For example, so if we want to represent the internal genetic informations, so this internal genetic makeup may be homozygous dominant, so we can represent with a capital letter, capital G, while the homozygous recessive is represented with a lowercase letter, the lowercase g. And if there is a heterozygous, so we can use one capital and one lowercase by representing the heterozygous. While the phenotypic expressions, so external observable character of the organism. So if external observable character of organism, for example, the white color of the mouse or the black color of the mouse is the external observable character. So these are phenotype. In phenotype, for homozygous recessive, we can easily identify it might be lowercase g. But the heterozygous or dominant trait is ambiguous. It may be homozygous or it may be heterozygous. For example, which name is given to the observable feature of an organism? So the observable feature of an organism is represented by phenotypic expressions. While alternative question, which name is given to the genetic feature of an organism? So if you are representing the internal genetic informations of an organism, it is represented by genotypic expressions. So these are the following questions. Further, we are heading toward genetic cross. So genetic cross may be a monohybrid cross or a dihybrid cross. In a monohybrid cross, so we are considering a single gene. So in a cross of one generations, so if there's a single gene is considered for the measurement of genotype or the phenotypic expressions, so this is called monohybrid cross. While in a one cross, if we consider two characters, so these two characters, for example, the gene for eye color or gene for earlobe. So if we are calculating two characters at the one time in a one cross, this will be dihybrid cross. So in a single cross, for example, in one cross, if you are considering only one pair of gene, so only one pair of allele or only one gene, so this is called monohybrid cross. While in the dihybrid cross, if you are considering the two different gene and two different pair of allele in a one cross, this will be dihybrid cross. We're going to move ahead to the allelic relationships. So these allelic relationships, we shall study how the character transfer from the parents to their offspring. This will express by the different allelic relationship. So the first relationship is a dominant and recessive relationship. In this dominant and recessive relationship, so the recessive allele cannot express in the presence of a dominant allele. For example, as we discussed before, the eye color. So this eye color, so the black is dominant over the green eye color or other different eye colors. So this way, the dominant will always express itself, while the recessive can express when the dominant is absent. In a codominance relationship, both have the same power of expressions. So the both allele can express equally in the next generations. So in this way, the blood group AB is a best example. So A and B, if there's both allele are the A and B, both can express themselves, and the blood group will be A and B. In a sex-linked trait is a kind of a specific trait. So as we studied about sex chromosome, X and Y, so these sex chromosomes contain the genes which have no the alternative part. So for example, the gene on the non-homologous part of the sex chromosome, for example, if you talk about X chromosome, so that the gene which are located on the one chromatid of X chromosome, which is absent on the Y chromosome. So this is called non-homologous part of the sex chromosome. And this will produce a disease or recessive characters or kind of defects it is producing, or it has a specific characters. So these are called the X-linked character or sex-linked trait. So these sex-linked traits are red-green blind is one example. So in upcoming video, we shall discuss in each video about the dominant and recessive relationship, codominance, and the sex-linked trait. But before watching this further video, the prerequisite is the required terminology is more essential. Hopefully, you will get this idea and it will be beneficial for you. Thank you very much for watching this video.